period of rent. How did Bill Gates become so wealthy? It's not that he exploits his workers and so on. No, he occupies an almost universal monopoly position. So in order for us to go on with our daily business, collaborating with each other, we pay him a rent by subscribing to Microsoft, one of his programs, by using his software, and so on and so on. So the very, what Marx called commons, the common space within which we interact, gets privatized. And I think the other side of this neo-feudalism is something almost more horrible, I would have said, which is the more and more important role of precarious work. What's the trick of precarious work? It is that you get a false freedom in precarious work, no? Like, look at an Uber driver. He owns his own means of production, he can work whenever he wants, and so on. And although he never can be sure will it last his work and so on, he, in a way, acts as an entrepreneur on his or her own. So the paradox is that while he experiences his life as more free than ever, you just work when you want, and so on, his subordination to the existing order is much more total than at any point before. So, the great danger today, I think, is not the traditional domination, where, you know, my master is out there. The most dangerous form of unfreedom today is the unfreedom that you experience as freedom. And I think the latest, most dangerous form of this is cryptocurrencies. The idea of cryptocurrencies was, of course, anarchic freedom. We can make money which will not be dependent on any state institutions. It's like direct, transparent exchange. The result of it is total impenetrability. We are more manipulated than ever, and even the very structure of manipulation is not transparent. So this is our predicament today. I almost have a longing for the good old times, which persist up to a point in China, where you know you are not free. My friends from China who are under observation, police tell me, you know you're observed, you look back, there is a secret policeman behind or whatever. But what about something much more horrible? You freely run around on the web, you are totally free, you buy what you want, etc. But you are totally denominated, your freedom is regulated. That's the danger today. And now I will talk about the impotence of knowledge. How knowing what the situation is can even prevent us from acting, from doing something. If you just follow the media, I'm sure you have noticed a strange thing. We are all the time told what our situation is and what is wrong. There was a conference half a year ago in Glasgow about the dangers of global warming, where all the right things were said. We need global cooperation, we need to change our entire way of life to cope with global catastrophe and so on. But these were just words. They adopted some empty rhetorical measures, but nothing really changed. So we live in a strange time where we know what is wrong. Pandemic, global warming, now the war. We know even vaguely what has to be done, but although we talk a lot of time about it, we are unable to act. Why? We cannot act precisely because we are hyperactive all the time. Look at our daily life in today's global capitalism. All the time, you have to be active, intervene, participate in something, and so on and so on. But in order to properly act, to change things, you have to step back a little bit, to acquire a minimal distance. This, we cannot do it. The system never leaves us alone. It's something that I know very well because in psychoanalysis we call it obsessional neurosis. And I know what I'm talking about because I think I'm one of them. An obsessional neurotic is active, talks all the time, but not in order to achieve something, but in order to make it sure that nothing will really change. And I'm sometimes like that. I talk all the time. Why? Because I am afraid that if for a short minute I stop talking, you will maybe notice the vacuity of what I'm saying and ask me a real question. So you see the paradox. Being hyperactive is a way to make it sure that nothing will really change. You know who knew this clearly? George Orwell. He wrote already back in 1937 that progressive radical leftists talk all the time about how necessary it is to change society, but he said they talk all the time about it, but with the secret wish that nothing will really change. This is also why I think many public intellectuals today like to spread total pessimism, like we are already 5 minutes past 12, we are doomed. It means I'm in a comfortable position of knowing that everything points towards a catastrophe. I don't have to act, to do anything. In psychoanalysis, we call this cynical reason, or in technical terms, fetishism. We know what the situation is, but instead of making us act, talking is here as an excuse not to do anything. If some of people viewing this show are in any way involved in art exhibitions, art biennales, they know what I'm talking about. If there is a form of art which is fully integrated into capitalist circulation, are these big art biennales. Venice, Kassel, and so on. And their ideology is strictly radically leftist. You have endless debates about how to fight global capitalism, how we are all manipulated by big capital. But they fit perfectly the global capital. The formula of cynical reason was proposed half a century ago by German philosopher Peter Sloterdijk, who said, people know what they are doing, horrors, dangers about what they are doing, but they are nonetheless doing. Did you already encounter a person who is properly cynical like this? I did when I was young in communist time. At my department of philosophy, there was a very cynical, corrupted professor who openly told us students, I know I'm a piece of shit. I cheat, I inform to police, but that's it. What can I do? I'm like that. You know where he was cheating? He thought that if he says this openly, if it in some way redeems him, it makes him better. No, it doesn't. The formula that applies here is the wonderful formula, a joke from one of the Marx Brothers movies. I think it's Duck Soup, but I'm not sure. Where Groucho Marx, a lawyer in the movie, defending an idiot, says, this man looks as an idiot and acts as an idiot, but this shouldn't deceive you, this man really is an idiot.
He really is an idiot. I implore you.
That's how we function today, unfortunately. Again, we live in an era of cynical reasoning where telling the truth is not enough. You can say the truth, but it's immediately incorporated. There is a film, which is not a great film, but nonetheless, it demonstrates this aspect of our predicament perfectly. It is Adam McKay's Don't Look Up, about, a comet approaching the Earth, threatening to destroy all life on the Earth. And the target of the film are not some kind of Donald Trump-like populists, but precisely the democratic establishment and protesters who warn, we are all in danger, look up. And they just make the spectacle out of the danger, but they don't do anything really. Life goes on as normal, and this is, I think, this is our problem today. Knowledge is not enough. What we need is truth. Truth is not simply knowledge. Truth is knowledge which subjectively engages you. And today we know everything, but we don't really subjectively assume this knowledge. That's why I think today, more than ever, we need to distinguish between knowledge and truth. Again, knowledge is objective knowledge, but it doesn't oblige you to anything. We don't need just science telling us how things are. We need knowledge which is engaged knowledge. This is why I hate, although they do some good work, I hate the logic of charity, which is part of the big corporate capitalism today. Charity, I think, helps reproducing the very situation which it pretends to fight. What do I mean by this? Allow me to read you a quote, the beginning of Oscar Wilde's excellent essay, The Soul of Man Under Socialism, which tells it all. Why Oscar Wilde claims that, quote, indeed, their remedies, charity and so on, are part of the disease. The proper aim is to try and reconstruct society on such a basis that poverty will be impossible. It is immoral to use private property in order to alleviate the horrible evils that result from the institution of private property. This last sentence, I think, provides a nice formula of what is wrong with, for example, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Bill Gates first, in a very brutal capitalist tactic, amasses enormous amount of money and then gives part of it back. I think that we should attack also Bill Gates' vacuous pan-humanitarianism. The answer to Bill Gates should be the title of a book published by an Austrian friend of mine, Sama Na'an. The title of the book is Refusal of Respect. Why we should not respect foreign cultures and our own also not. I think this multicultural formula of all cultures are worth of respect and so on is totally deceiving and false. No, behind every culture there is a barbarism. So the solution is not respect other cultures but despise your own. It's also not, of course, the racist formula of only our culture is great one, despise others. No, we should be universal in the sense of sharing what is wrong, connecting what is wrong in our culture with what is wrong in other culture. That's why I will go to the end here, it may shock you. The citizens of a developed country who thinks that most that he can do is to open his land to immigrants is in a way wrong. No, I'm not saying that I'm against immigrants, but I'm saying that already to formulate the problem in this way, as if the big dilemma is open our limits to immigrants or not, is to accept the basic mystification, to confront the true problem. But why are there immigrants? We should fight to change the social order which makes some people immigrants. Humanitarianism, again, is not enough. And especially to go even more to the end, pacifism is not enough. It's horrible to say this apropos Ukrainian war, but I really despise all those who are saying these days, we need peace and so on. Are we aware that peace, the desire for peace, is always the desire of occupiers? Israel doesn't want anything more than peace on the West Bank. Peace means you firmly have under your hand the terrain that you occupy. And I'm totally convinced that Russia now wants peace in Ukraine. Peace means we occupy it. We have the firm hold over it. No, we live in a crazy time where wars are no longer the old wars between nation states, but they are really, in some sense, peacekeeping interventions. So we need a total mobilization against this type of false peace. To conclude, I want to destroy another of your maybe illusions, which is yes, we have to step out of these political manipulations and so on. We need poets and thinkers. No, they're the worst. I hope to shock you here a little bit. My formula is no ethnic cleansing without poetry. You know, most of us, we are relatively decent people. And take any of you, since you are probably normally human and me also, if I were to kill you, obliged to kill you, it would be very difficult for me. I see you in your eye, I see you are another human being. I cannot do it. And here, poetry and thinking or religion, some high ideology enters. As Steven Weinberg, the well-known quantum cosmologist, said, he said, without religion, good people would have been good people and bad people would have been bad people. But we need something like religion to make good people do bad things. I'm speaking here from my own experience, the horrible civil war in ex-Yugoslavia, where we can clearly see how the war was grounded decades ago in nationalist poets and so on. Just look at modern poetry, how many of them, from Yeats to Ezra Pound and so on, were fascists. So, again, since we are minimally decent people, we need poetry or national mythology to make us ready to do horrible things. Again, the horror of today's wars is that they express something that we no longer can call, as when I was young, apropos Vietnam War, the military-industrial complex, but I think we should call it the poetic military complex. The army doing the work outlined by poets and thinkers. And it's the case today in Russia. You cannot understand Putin without Russian nationalist artists doing propaganda for him, convincing Russians that they have a special mission, or without his court philosophers like Alexander Dugin, who claim there is a special Russian truth opposed to European truth, and that only war can decide. So we are in a very difficult situation. Both obvious solutions. That is to say, poetry thinking, but also its opposite, brutal pragmatism, they don't work. And I think this is why a true revolution is needed. Not the old communist revolution, but we have to change the basic paradigms of how we perceive reality. In 20th century, we tried to change the world too quickly, too much. Now we have to step back and interpret, understand our world in a different way. Thank you. Today we conclude with a topic which unfortunately is on all our minds: war again. So what has the ongoing war in Ukraine to do with freedom? I think that ultimately this is some kind of metaphysical war, in the sense that it's not just a war about controlling territory, exercise of power. It is ultimately a war between different notions of not freedom but liberty. Who is Putin here? I don't underestimate Putin. He's not just a paranoiac maniac who wants to occupy all of Europe. He is supported by a well-elaborated metaphysical vision. And I oppose Putin already at this philosophical level. I don't know how many of those who follow me now, how many of you did notice a very important detail. When Putin announced military intervention in Ukraine, he mentioned critically only one name, Lenin. He said, you remember, Ukraine was a Bolshevik invention. It doesn't exist as a nation, and so on, and so on. So, for all those leftists who still think, nonetheless, the great enemy today is American imperialism, so even if Putin is not exactly a model of democracy, he opposes the greatest threat, NATO and United States, so we can be his allies. If you think like this should ruin your last illusions. Putin is simply a dangerous national conservative who is thinking in what terms. Remember, many people don't know this, which is liberty provided by a safe network of authoritarian power. It's interesting to know who is Putin's official philosopher. It's Ivan Ilyin, a conservative Russian theologist from 1920s. He escaped Soviet Union, and then he developed something that he directly called a new Russian fascism, which was an authoritarian patriarchal order. Ilyin said, we only vote in order to affirm our collective support for our leader. Isn't this incidentally how elections effectively work now in Russia? So no wonder Ilyin is really the official philosopher now. Do you know that I heard from Russian friends, his books are now reprinted in hundreds of thousands of copies by the state. Every military conscript is given them. Every state administrator is given his books, and so on and so on. Then, the present court philosopher of Putin, Alexander Dugin, follows this line, but with a postmodern spin of historicist relativism. A quote, you have to hear it to believe it, that it's true. I'm quoting Alexander Dugin. Postmodernity shows that every so-called truth is a matter of believing. So we believe in what we do, we believe in what we say. And that is the only way to define the truth. So we have our special Russian truth that you need to accept. If the United States does not want to start a war, you should recognize that the United States is not anymore a unique master. This is the question of who rules the world. Only war could decide really. That's Putin's official philosopher. So what's important to note here is that when Dugin said we have our own truth and so on, he reduces this truth nonetheless to a couple of big spheres. Like we can ask What about Ukrainian troops? What about Syrian troops? No, they don't care, Russians, about that. Another Russian state philosopher, Efraimov Dmitry, said brutally, in the next couple of decades, the world will be changed into 4 great spheres of influence. American, Russian, Chinese, and Indian. All other sovereign states will disappear. They will maybe continue to exist formally, but they will be subordinated to this. This is the vision which you should bear in mind, which is no longer the vision of war as a war between nation states. No. This is why I think within their view of the world, Russia is right to claim that their attack on Ukraine is not a war. For them, war would have been the direct war between Russia and NATO or United States. But they are now just on a peacekeeping mission within what they consider their sphere of influence. Why is this situation so tragic? Because if anything is clear, it is that we, all of us, global capitalist order, we are at a moment of crisis. I would be even a little bit critical, not of Ukrainian heroic resistance to Russia, but of how they sometimes ideologically formulate it. Their formula is, we are defending Europe, European civilization. My God, my reaction is, if they say this, are they not aware that they are already speaking Putin's and Dugin's language? As if there is a European-American sphere and Russian sphere, and we defend our sphere. No, I think that the battle going on in Ukraine is a universal global battle. It's a battle for what the new world order will be. I almost have a nostalgia for the Cold War, which was Cold War, in the sense that it was war, but it was cold, kept cold by fixed rules that all sides obey. Now, we don't have yet new rules. Big powers are making experiments. Of course, experiments at the expense of smaller nations. What the new rules will be. And the madness is this one. Exactly in the situation which is today, where our very existence is under threat. First, we have global warming. One cannot even imagine how we will all be affected 10, 20 years from now. We will have other pandemics. We have social problems even in developed countries. At this point, war returns. War which precisely prevents what we need, a global cooperation to deal with global warming. Just think what is clearly happening. Even if there will be no further big war, if a compromise will be found in Ukraine, there will be refugees because of global warming. New deserts are forming and so on and so on. So where will millions of people go? In the old times, this was decided by wars. Today, because many states have atomic weapons, chemical weapons, and so on, we cannot afford this. Cooperation is a matter of survival. So let me give you an interpretation of what is going on today. I think that the mistake of Ukrainians who think they are defending Europe is that they don't see that what they call Europe, the European civilization, is in itself in a deep crisis. Remember protests like Yellow Vests in France, Podemos in Spain and other places. These were not protests which articulated a desire to be more European. These were signs of a crisis of the existing European civilization itself. I think that if, or let's hope when, Ukraine wins, then they will confront the real problem, which is what kind of Europe do they want to join? Do they want this new fundamentalist Europe, neoconservative Europe, which excludes immigrants and so on, or do they want what really is the best in Europe? Feminism, human rights, social democratic tradition, welfare state, and so on and so on. So again, now I come to my really, please listen to this really crucial point. The tragedy of the ongoing war is for me that it's not the moment of truth, in the sense of now we were fighting wrong battles, who cares today about feminism, global warming, all this is forgotten, now we have the real conflict there, Europe or Russia. No, this war is in some sense the deepest lie, because true long-term problems disappear. You know where you can feel this or see this clearly? Something which really made me sad happened recently among European conservatives. Till now, they had some understanding for Putin. Some of them even said, yeah, we understand Putin, he has his own right on his side. As you probably remember, Donald Trump openly first praised Putin. But now, even the extreme right in Europe militarized itself, but with an implicit argumentation, which I find terrifying. The logic is this one. This war finally enables us to get rid of all the pseudo problems. Global warming, sexual oppression, feminism, and so on. Now the situation is real war. Neoconservatives follow Dugin and European conservatives for whom war is the only true ethical moment. In war, you make the basic choice, you do what is needed to do. And it's incredible how neoconservatives celebrate what is going on in Ukraine now, where they claim the proper sexual difference is again established. They say, forget about transgender and so on. Now, sexual roles are again affirmed. Women escape Ukraine with children to do in safety their proper job, which is, of course, raising children and so on, while men even return to Ukraine fighting. This is the real conflict. And that's for me, again, the tragedy of this war. Exactly the wrong interpretation is prevailing. Against this, we should, I think, adopt some very sad insight. What the first one is that, again, this is not just a war between Russia and the West or whatever. This is a war for a new world order. What will be the new world order? And the Russian project is clear. That's why they don't even call the attack on Ukraine war. For them, this is limited intervention into their own sphere. What they want is global peace, but peace in the sense in which each country, big country, is allowed to maintain peace within its sphere of influence to what the Russians call peaceful, limited military operation. The vision of Russia is that. Why? This is what Putin says again and again. I don't get it. Why doesn't life go on? Putin is all the time saying we still deliver oil to the West. Their vision is, as I call it, not Cold War, but hot peace. Global peace where there are always local wars here and there which maintain peace. And this, I think, is the catastrophe that we should avoid at any point. Something like new non-alignment is needed. By this, I mean we should not just say we protect the European way of life in Ukraine. No, our struggle there when we support Ukraine is a global struggle. A global struggle for a certain notion of liberty, which includes, again, welfare state, feminist, human rights, feminism, human rights, and all that is progressive in European legacy. What Russia and China, unfortunately, more and more stand for, including some European conservatives who join them, is a type of multiculturalism which is very dangerous, which is peaceful coexistence of, as they say, different ways of life. The message of Putin repeatedly to the West is, let's coexist. You have countries where you do your own stupidities. You allow gay marriages and so on, all that. There are other countries, Arab countries, where you can do clitoridectomy, beat women, whatever. Why don't we all peacefully exist together? So it's a version of global market, but between countries, each of which has its own way of life. I think the new non-alignment should mean non-alignment in the sense that we are not aligned to a specific way of life. I don't like when Ukrainians are saying, but we belong to you, we are white people like you, you should support us. No, I don't care about that. White Europeans also can do horrible things. Should we forget that Nazism was done by Germans, by the nation which embodies the highest European culture? So, I'm for globalism, for universal struggle, but again, the universalism which is universalism of a shared struggle. We should not isolate Russia today. We should establish all connections possible with maybe the true heroes of this war. Russians who risked their lives and dare to protest in all possible way against Putin's war. And we should do the same in our own countries. This is the solidarity we should strive for. So, I think that that's crucial to say. Our message to Russians who protest against the war in Ukraine is not, oh, thanks that you are not patriots, you are universalists. No, they are the true patriots. A true patriot, that's for me the best definition I can imagine. A true patriot, the one who truly loves his country, is a person who is ashamed of his own country when his country is doing something wrong. That's the difficult thing to do today. I think that there is no more disgusting slogan than the well-known saying, my country, right or wrong. If you say this, you are not a true patriot. And now, to conclude, I'm coming back to freedoms. The first act of freedom is to be able to resist your own country when it goes wrong. That's why patriotism and freedom are not opposed. If patriotism is the true patriotism. For example, my Israeli friends who they oppose terrorism, but they understand the difficult plight of Palestinians in the West Bank, they are for me the true inheritors of the great Jewish legacy. That's what we should be able to do. This is where true patriotism is not opposed to internationalism. You can be a true patriot and an internationalist. And if you are ready to be ashamed of your own country, this is the first step towards freedom today. Today, you cannot be really free without being at least a little bit ashamed of your own country. Thank you very much for your patience, for watching The Great Minds, and although I have some doubt if I am really among the great minds, I hope at least that I perplexed you a little bit. I didn't want you to bring you clear answers so that you can say, okay, now we know it, let's go to sleep. I want to disorient you, to make you think. If I succeeded in this, even if you don't agree with me, I think I achieved what I wanted. So it was an honor for me. Thank you very much.
Ja, einen wunderschönen guten Abend. Ich darf Sie herzlich heute Abend hier begrüßen im Orpheum in Graz. Wir haben einen sehr illustren Gast, der heute hier zu uns, zu Ihnen, zu mir sprechen wird. Mein Name ist Sebastian Brauners, ich darf heute ein bisschen den Abend führen. Ich freue mich, dass Sie so zahlreich erschienen sind und schon einen Großteil Ihre Plätze eingenommen haben. Das Ganze heute am Abend wird sich in einem kurzen Überblick für Sie ungefähr so gestalten. Ich rede jetzt da mit Ihnen, so bis alle da sind, und versuche die Zeit dazu zu überblicken. Und dann begrüße ich den Herrn Zizek, der kommt dann auf die Bühne, wenn Sie wollen, auf der Insel. Und danach spricht der Herr Zizek zu Ihnen und ein bisschen auch zu mir. Und danach wird das Ganze ein Gespräch, und das Schöne an dem Gespräch ist, dass wir hier so ein großes Forum haben und dass es unbedingt wichtig wäre und auch gewollt ist, dass Sie sich dann vielleicht mit der einen oder anderen Frage oder mit der einen oder anderen Ergänzung zu dem, was der Herr Zizek so von sich geben wird, einmengen. Es ist mir eine weitere Sache wichtig. Das Ganze endet um 19:30 Uhr und es findet danach ein Konzert statt. Deswegen würde ich Sie bitten, geordnet, ruhig, aber rasch den Saal zu verlassen, weil die Sessel, auf denen Sie sitzen, die müssen dann auch noch raus, und weil die keine Beine haben, oder beziehungsweise sie haben 4 Beine natürlich, aber die können nicht selber gehen, Die müssen dann von dienstfertigen Helfern und Helferinnen entfernt werden und das dauert ein bisschen und deswegen wäre es gut, wenn wir wirklich Schluss machen. Ich werde mich jetzt auch nicht so lange darin erschöpfen, den Herrn Professor Zizek vorzustellen, weil ich bin fast 100%ig überzeugt, dass Sie alle deswegen da sind, weil Sie ihn kennen, sich vielleicht eine andere Meinung zu ihm bilden wollen, was ich immer gesagt habe, beziehungsweise ihn kennenlernen, ihn aber sich dazu informiert haben vorher, zum Beispiel im Internet. Also da gibt es die ärgsten Sachen. Wirklich, ich schwöre, ich bin auch manchmal dort. Also. Und deswegen glaube ich, muss ich jetzt nicht ausführlich alle Buchtitel aufzählen, beziehungsweise sagen, an welchen Instituten er Professorenstile hält und mit welchen markanten und markten und vielleicht auch kontroversiellen Äußerungen er bis jetzt schon aufgefallen ist. Oder dass er sich solche Kritik gefallen lassen musste, weil er fast kaum seine eigene These aus sich selbst heraus entwickelt verteidigt, sondern meistens referenziert. Aber es ist das Feld der Philosophie Gott sei Dank ein weites und gerade in Zeiten wie diesen vielleicht auch wichtig, dass wir auch heute die gemeinsam die Gedanken einer Kommunikation und eines Forums miteinander hochhalten. Das Heritage Festival stellt diese Begegnung hier auch ein bisschen unter den Gedanken der Unlikely Alliances, also zu Deutsch vielleicht der etwas untypischen Allianzen. Ich hoffe, so eine kann heute hier auch unter möglichster Negation dieser Rampe, die da immer leider auch ein bisschen sekretierend ist, zwischen ihnen und dem, was hier passiert, stattfinden. Markig gesprochen wird es wohl um Katastrophen gehen. Das ist ja prinzipiell nichts Schlimmes. Das sich auch oft im Internet anschauen. Das sind, wie gesagt, die ärgsten Sachen. Und sie sind ja auch quasi auf eine gewisse Art und Weise sicher auch der Kick, der uns irgendwie alle zusammenhalten oder zusammenrücken können, wenn wir wollen und gemeinsam was meistern und vielleicht auch was schaffen, was wir alleine gar nicht schaffen können. Aber auf der anderen Seite beinhalten sie natürlich auch die Gefahr, dass das Individuum vielleicht ein bisschen zurückstecken muss und das ist gerade in Zeiten wie diesen und an einem Tag wie heute vielleicht gar nicht so eine angenehme Sache. Es ist auch irgendwie interessant, dass 90 Jahre in der Vergangenheit von genau heute aus die erste Republik Österreichs zum ersten Mal verabschiedet hat und der Ständestaat übernommen. Das Parlament hat sich ausgeschaltet und jetzt ist es 90 Jahre später und wir haben noch immer Trying Times, vielleicht sogar noch mehr. Liegt vielleicht auch daran, dass wir alle viel besser informiert sind oder vermeintlich besser informiert sind. Also ich freue mich sehr, dass ich jetzt hier auf der Bühne Professor Slavoj Žižek begrüßen darf. Begrüßen Sie mit mir. Bitte.
Charles Chaplin does this in Great Dictator. He stops the applause.
Try. No, okay.
No. Okay, ich muss mich erst entschuldigen. Ich verstehe deutsche Sprache, eventuelle Fragen. Sie können die Fragen natürlich auf Deutsch stellen. Nur, ich kann nicht flüssig Deutsch sprechen. Und eine kleine Kritik an dir. Was habe ich dort gehört? Das will ich nicht. Herr Professor, Doktor. What did I do to you? Did I rape your mother or what to talk?
Actually, I did exactly the opposite. I said I don't want to elaborate on your doctor and professor.
That's
So
good,
I
yeah.
did the other.
Because I prefer this bad taste playing with words. You are brown eyes.
I am brown eyes.
I'm blue eyes.
You are blue eyes.
More Nazi
I
than
really,
you.
really.
Okay, I'm sorry now. It's serious.
Yeah, it's
if
serious,
you
it's
allow me, I will not try to be too long. Please, if you will feel that some things are provocative, it's on purpose, not to beleidigen you, not to hurt you, but simply to bring out the real debate. Because I feel that on both sides, the so-called wokeness, liberal side, and so-called new fundamentalist, rightists, debate is less and less possible. So let me begin. I was so glad to learn that the general title of this event is Unholy Alliances, because this already provides the answer to my title. Only a catastrophe or what can save us. Why? Because we live in a time of unholy alliances. I will try, and then we go on a free dialogue. I will try to ground this in, even if it will sound sometimes fun, it's very sad and serious. I think today we really need, it's not an empty phrase, in a complex time. Not complex in this empirical sense. Yes, situation is always complex, you know. So, for example, to make a jump towards actual situation, I am basically, of course, in this war, pro-Ukrainian, and I hate that when some of my friends tell me, but you know, Ukrainians are not so good, the situation is very complex. Well, the situation is always complex. World War II, it was not simply democracy against Nazism, because I'm sorry, Stalin was not a democrat and so on, and we had to join forces. But let me directly bomb you with a great unholy alliance, which Putin, not only Putin, is exploiting to the end. I know people who know people who are close to Putin. And they told me that what Putin is doing is interesting. On the one hand, he relies on Orthodox Church support. The, how do you call it, patriarch or whatever of Orthodox Church in Russia, Kirill, he is an old KGB fellow of Putin, no? But not only that, Putin did something very interesting. He controls a group of young leftist Marxists, and they are the ones who support his otherwise almost openly fascist, conservative line of argumentation. You know, Western Europe is the realm of Satanism. Kirill Patriarch even proclaimed Putin the greatest exorcist of our time. And for example, I watched a wonderful debate on Russian TV. I follow it. You learn a lot there. About ideological madness. When somebody confronts Putin, pro-Putin figure and says, but are you really sure that Ukrainians are degenerate Nazis? And the guy said, okay, even if you